A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the distinguished participants, children, and adults joining us today from all around the world.
Un muy cálido buenos días, buenas tardes y buenas noches para todos y todas los participantes, niños, niñas, adolescentes y adultos que nos acompañan de todos los rincones del mundo.
I am Sanjay from India. I am 14 years old, doing my ninth grade. I am glad to share that I have been actively participating in India poverty solutions for the past few years. I am attended the ethics education workshop for living together conducted by Shanti Ashram in my school. I am also volunteer at Shanti Ashram in various childhood activities.
Greetings of peace. My name is Pooja. I'm from India. I'm 16 years old, doing my 11th grade. I am an active volunteer in various children-led initiatives of Shanti Ashram. Along with my school friends, I have been contributing for India poverty solutions. I am extremely happy to share that in 2020, I participated in the Faith in Action for Children campaign organized by Arigato International.
Hola, mi nombre es Emily, tengo 15 años y vivo en Santiago de Chile. Estoy en primero medio.
Hola, mi nombre es Javier, tengo 17 años, vivo en Chile también y voy en cuarto medio.
We are honored to welcome you to the opening ceremony of the online global symposium Transforming Education, Ethics Education for Learning to Live Together.
This symposium is organized by Arigato International Geneva,
The Durant Hermes Foundation for Peace,
the Higher Committee for Human Fraternity,
ICESCO, the Islamic World Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization,
KC Dialogue Center,
the Kenya National Commission for UNESCO,
El Ministerio de Educación de Kenia,
Religiones por la Paz,
Escolas Ocurrentes,
la Alianza de Civilizaciones por las Naciones Unidas,
UNICEF con apoyo de la UNESCO.
The symposium aims to accelerate action to prioritize ethics education as a critical aspect to foster learning to live together, contributing to building a better future for all. For me, as a child, ethics education is very important, especially in a country like India, where we come from different cultural and economic backgrounds. Inclusive methods help us to understand the diverse interests of our fellow students and develop interconnectedness with more respect and empathy towards each other.
Para mí esto significa que a los niños y niñas les den un espacio para poder alzar su voz y decir lo que piensan.
Para mí, esto significa una educación que forme ciudadanos íntegros y que se preocupe sobre todo en los aspectos valóricos. Este simposio es un evento de 2 días que combina paneles de discusión, diálogos intergeneracionales y talleres donde escucharemos las experiencias de diversos socios y expertos de todo el mundo sobre los beneficios que la educación ética puede aportar a las sociedades.
Our participants include formal education practitioners and policymakers who work in education development at the national, regional, and global levels, and also faith leaders, researchers, youth leaders, and children.
By the end of these 2 days, we will identify several actions and ways to collaborate to advance the implementation of ethics education around the world.
Now, we would like to introduce our distinguished speakers and invite them to share some remarks to inaugurate our event.
Para comenzar, es un privilegio darle la palabra al reverendo Keiichi Miyamoto, presidente de Arigato International.
教育の変革、共に生きることを学ぶための倫理教育、オンライングローバルシンポジウムへようこそ。コロナの世界的流行は教育に影響を与えています。世界中の子どもや若者は学校が閉鎖され、自分たちの声を伝えることのできる場所を縮小し、家庭における暴力を経験するなど、コロナ禍は何百万人もの人々の精神的健康に影響を及ぼしてきました。また、私たちの社会は外国人排斥、差別と偏見の増大、そして社会的・経済的不平等の悪化によっても影響を受けています。その一方で、コロナの世界的流行によって、私たちは人間としての つながりや世界の相互依存症をより強く意識するようになりました。子どもや若者は私たちに立ち直る力を教えてくれましたが、同時に社会が抱えるさまざまな倫理的課題に対応するために、教育を変革し、子どもや若者がより良い世界を築くための担い手となる準備を支援することを求めています。私の父であり、ありがとうインターナショナルの創設者である宮本武康氏の言葉が私の心に思い浮かびます。私は精神的な衰退と基本的な倫理観の欠如が今日私たちの周りで見られる暴力と不公正の増加の根底にあると確信しています。平和への道を歩むための重要な一歩は、すべての子供が生まれながらにして持っている精神性を十分に発揮して成長できるようにすることです。人間の尊厳のある平和な世界、本当の意味で子供たちにふさわしい世界を築くという目標を達成するためには、学校やその他多くの教育の場で、諸宗教間において倫理教育を実施することは極めて重要なのです。このシンポジウムは、子どもたちとの約束を守り、教育の変革を支援する私どもの取り組みの一環です。私たちはその声を届けてくれる子どもたちとともに、子どもたちの倫理的及び精神的な発達に焦点を当て、互いに共感する力を育み、さまざまな文化、宗教、信仰を持つ人々と共に生き、共に働くことを学ぶ力を与える教育を目指しています。共に生きることを学ぶための倫理教育を実践するために、この2日間に集い、協力し、行動することを促進してくれたシンポジウムのパートナー、講演者、参加者のすべての皆様に感謝を申し上げます。教育が多様な人々を受け入れる平和な社会の構築に貢献するものとなるよう、手を携えて行動していきましょう。
Dear Reverend Miyamoto, thank you for your inspiring words and your commitment to work with children to transform education together.
Ahora estamos felices de presentar a nuestro distinguido invitado, Su Eminencia, el Cardenal Miguel Ángel Ayuso, presidente del Pontificio Consejo para el Diálogo Interreligioso.
Reverend Miyamoto, collaborators of Arigato International, esteemed participants. Today, I bring best wishes from the Holy See for the success of this symposium. I would like to offer thoughts from our perspective as a global church concerned for the good of humanity in regard to the theme Ethics Education for Learning to Live Together. The desires of this symposium resonate with those of Pope Francis, which prompted him to establish a global compact on education, calling on educators around the world to work towards a new paradigm of education that prioritizes patient listening, constructive dialogue, and better mutual understanding for a more open and inclusive education. Education, rather than being simple instruction, is a drawing out. Ethics education draws out of children their inherent ability to discern good and evil. In this process, in this encounter, both child and adult are purified from all that prevents authentic respect and reverence for each human person and for creation. Ethics education will have a deeper dimension if it allows for the development of interiority. There is a profound need in educational programs to foster silence so that the youth may know what is within themselves and also reach out to others. This interiority nurtures a sense of transcendence and opening to the source of life and meaning. Education that is connected to the earth and the cycles of life, growth and death forms listening human beings. The ethical resources for building human fraternity that lie within each person, culture and religion call out to be recognized and developed. If ethics education for children guides them to a deeper understanding of and respect for their own roots, they will be better prepared to welcome others who are different. Strong identities and robust diversity are needed in our societies. Cultural groups, and particularly families, are the living bodies within which children grow their identity, and each living body follows its own impulses towards growth. Yet, nothing can grow without interaction with outside elements. Humanity needs a new thinking that leads to a broad dialogical exercise that freely involves anyone who wishes to work towards an authentic culture of encounter. To conclude, I offer the words of Pope Francis as he inaugurated the Global Compact on Education. He said, "I invite everyone to work for this alliance and to be committed to nurturing the dream of a humanism rooted in solidarity and responsive both to humanity's aspirations and to God's plan." Thank you for your kind attention.
Estimado Cardenal Ayuso, muchas gracias por sus valiosas observaciones.
Now, we are honored to give the floor to our third guest, His Eminence Dr. Muhammad Ad-Duwini, Al-Azhar Grand Imam's deputy.
الأستاذ الدكتور محمد عبد الرحمن الضويني وكيل الأزهر الشريف. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وبعد، فأرحب بالسادة الحضور وأرجو أن تحقق هذه الندوة ما تصبو إليه من أهداف نبيلة. إن الإيمان بعقيدة خاصة والانتماء إلى هوية معينة لا يمنعان حسن الخلق مع المخالفين لهذه العقيدة ولتلك الهوية، ولا التواصل الفعال مع الكون كله. وإن الإسلام يربي أتباعه على الانشغال بهموم العالم. ومما جاء في التراث: الناس صنفان، إما أخ لك في الدين أو نظير لك في الخلق. وحول المسلمون هذه الوصية إلى ممارسة عملية، فها هو عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه يرى رجلا ضريرا يتسول، فيسأله: من الرجل؟ فيقول: رجل من أهل الذمة لا يجد طعاما. فيستشعر عمر وهو الحاكم المسلم مسؤوليته عن إنسان من أبناء دولته، فيقول: ما أنصفناه، أكلنا شبابه وتركناه في عجزه. وجعل له عطاء من بيت المال يكفي حاجته. وإن تربية إنسان العصر على المواطنة العالمية وما تفرضه من أخلاقيات وسلوكيات لم يعد خيارا مطروحا بحيث نقبله أو نرفضه، بل هو ضرورة حضارية يفرضها التقارب الكوني وتوجبها الأحداث المتسارعة، ولا تعارض هذه المواطنة العالمية الإيمان بالعقائد والتمسك بالهويات. وبناء على هذا تتأكد أهمية أن تتضمن المقررات التعليمية دروسا وأنشطة تشمل المعارف ومهارات التفكير الضرورية لتحقيق فهم أفضل للعالم، وتغرس في النشء القيم التي تمكنهم من العيش مع الآخرين على أساس من الاحترام والسلام، وتوجه السلوكيات والمهارات الاجتماعية نحو الاندماج والقبول. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much, Your Eminence, for these important reflections.
Now, we are happy to give the floor to Mr. Sharif Horti, Chairman, Geo and Hermes Foundation for Peace.
Ethical education is very important because it can enable us to live well in human communities. Typically, there are at least two approaches to ethical education. One focuses on teaching students about shared values among different faiths and cultures as the basis of living in pluralistic societies. This emphasis on commonalities recognizes that communities are constituted in ethical norms, fundamental to all traditions. The other approach to ethical education tends to stress the importance of celebrating differences in belief and practice. It acknowledges that diversity is central to our lives in communities. An appreciation of human diversity can strengthen our ability to learn from each other. I would urge that we need a third, a more integrated approach that doesn't stress commonalities and differences as such, but rather one that inspires children and young people to engage in generative relational processes and practices. This will lead them to an awareness of their common humanity. Ethical education, thus conceived, often involves learning the arts of listening and dialogue. These help students to transcend social identities and categories and step into each other's lived realities. They spontaneously become concerned about the suffering and plight of others, including the suffering of beings in nature. Therefore, I'm delighted that the Gero Hermes Foundation for Peace is joining other partners in supporting this international symposium on ethics and education. We look forward to working together to further develop and enrich relational pedagogies and practices.
Dear Mr. Horty, thank you very much for your thoughtful remarks.
Now, it's a privilege to give the floor to His Excellency Judge Muhammad Abdul Salam, Secretary General, Higher Committee for Human Fraternity.
وثيقة الأخوة الإنسانية جاءت لتعزيز قيم التعايش والتسامح والأخوة بين الناس، لتكون صوتا موحدا في مواجهة الكراهية والعنف والتطرف والإقصاء. سعينا المشترك لتعزيز هذه القيم الإنسانية لا يمكن أن ينجح إلا من خلال التعليم والتعليم الجيد. فالتعليم الجيد هو الأساس لكل شيء جيد، هو الأساس لنظام صحي جيد، لنظام اقتصادي جيد، لنظام مجتمعي جيد، هو الأساس لخلق مستقبل جيد لأجيالنا ولأطفالنا ولعالمنا الذي نعيشه. أعتقد أن التعليم لا ينبغي أن يكون قاصرا على نقل المعلومات والبيانات وصب هذه المعلومات والبيانات في أذهان الأطفال والطلاب. بالعكس، التعليم ينبغي أن يؤكد ويرسخ القيم الأخلاقية والقيم الإنسانية في أذهان وعقول وتفكير هؤلاء الأطفال وهؤلاء الطلاب، لبناء جيل قادر على قيادة وطنه، على قيادة مستقبله، على صنع سلام عالمي وبيئة عالمية صالحة للعيش وصالحة لإسعاد الإنسان.
Dear Judge Abdul Salam, thank you for your very important words.
música une a la gente. La música nos inspira y mejora nuestra salud y bienestar.
La música nos da confianza y nos permite conectarnos con nosotros mismos. La música también es una herramienta poderosa en el área de la educación.
Let us fill our hearts with two inspiring compositions played by Anthony, a member of GNRC Children's Committee from Lebanon.
Dear Anthony, thank you very much for this wonderful performance.
Now, we would like to introduce our distinguished guest, Dr. Salim M. Al Malik, Director General, Islamic World Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, ICSCO.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. No one can deny that ethics are essential for humans. They are the means for achieving both individual and collective happiness. They are vital for the prevalence of goodness and security, mutual trust, harmony, and love among people. Ethics are also a lever for promoting nations and advancing civilizations. Ethics lie at the core of Islam. They are the principles and rules that govern human behavior. We at ICSCO accord special attention to ethics in education from early childhood to higher education. This will contribute to eliminating all shapes and forms of deviation and help spread love among people and attain happiness in society. Hence, ICSCO's belief in the importance of ethics and peace education stems from our firm commitment to the global values that instill lofty morals in the younger generation, empower women and girls, support humanity in its quest for mutual understanding and acceptance of the other, promote coexistence and unity, uphold cooperation on issues of common interest for nations of different cultures and faith, and work on anchoring lasting peace. Thank you.
Dear Dr. Al Malik, thank you very much for your inspiring intervention. We are happy to give the floor to Mrs. Ilham Al-Shenji, Interim Deputy Secretary General, Kaiser International Dialogue Center.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends, I am delighted to participate at this global symposium and to highlight how KAICEED as an IGO, and more specifically how faith-based organizations and religious leaders can contribute to inclusive education. We gather here today in recognition of immense global challenges. According to the United Nations, COVID-19 has wiped out 20 years of education gains. More than 357 million children live in conflict zones and are often denied the right to education. Additionally, 617 million children and adolescents around the world are unable to reach minimum proficiency levels in reading and mathematics. We know that education is vital to sustainable development, economic growth, and fostering active citizenship. Hence the question, what education do we need for the 21st century, and what is its purpose in the current context of societal transformation? The classroom shapes our worldviews and our belief systems. Quality, inclusive education equips us with critical thinking skills, teaches us to voice our opinions respectfully, resolve disagreements peacefully, and open our eyes and hearts to appreciate and respect other cultures, religions, and ways of life. Faith leaders are already on the front lines, operating half of the world's schools and education programs. Often, they work in hard-to-reach places where governments are unable to provide education for poor and vulnerable communities. The authority of their collective moral voice can ensure that millions of children worldwide learn important values of respect and appreciation for diversity. As we kick off discussions here today, we hope to encourage strong partnerships between faith leaders and the international community on education. The risk of inaction is high, but together we can ensure that our children, our youth, as the leaders of the future, become compassionate members of society with equal inclusive opportunities to reach their full potential. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Elshenji, for the insightful words today.
Now, it is our privilege to introduce Dr. Evangeline Joka, Secretary General, Kenya National Commission for UNESCO.
It gives me great pleasure to be with you during the official opening of this International Symposium on Ethics, Education for Learning to Live Together. I wish to begin by pointing out that Sustainable Development Goal 4.7 underscores the development of skills needed to promote sustainable development, including human rights, gender equality, promotion of a culture of peace and non-violence, global citizenship, and appreciation of cultural diversity. In this regard, for education to be transformative, it needs to go far beyond transmitting knowledge, though focusing on the social, humanistic, and moral aspects. This will nurture critical thinking, empathy, ethical reflection, and the inculcation of values among learners for enhanced cohesion in our society. Evidence shows us that such an education should begin early through provision of safe learning spaces for children to explore, discover, and create their own learning with the support of teachers and facilitators. In line with UNESCO priorities, the Kenya National Commission for UNESCO has been promoting and supporting the interventions towards integration of global citizenship education at all levels of education. Through the UNESCO ASPINET network in Kenya, the Commission has continuously empowered teachers on peace education and GCED through capacity building and provision of platforms for knowledge and experience exchange. In addition, the Commission has worked collaboratively with the Ministry of Education to develop guidelines to support mainstreaming of GCED in basic education, TVET, and university education. We have also forged collaborations with partners to continuously learn and customize programs implemented in other countries to the Kenyan context to support development of skills, values, and attitudes for ethical living and more peaceful world. As I conclude my remarks, I call upon all actors in education to pay closer attention to holistic development of learners in this recovery period from the pandemic to promote mutual understanding and respect across diverse communities and contribute a better and cohesive society going forward. With those remarks, I thank you and God bless you.
Dear Dr. Joka, thank you very much for your insightful intervention.
Es un gran privilegio dar la palabra a la doctora Sara Ruto, jefa administrativa del despacho del Ministerio de la Educación de Kenia.
Thank you for the invitation to attend this global symposium on ethics education for learning to live together. Ethics education directly speaks to the reforms that the government, under the leadership of His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, is leading. Today, many are growing up without the desired values, attitudes, and psychosocial competencies needed to function as responsible citizens. Kenya recognizes that education that is devoid of positive values, just like science that is not guided by ethics, can be dangerous, destructive, and is not sustainable. It is in this regard that the Constitution of Kenya 2010 provides the values that Kenya must uphold in order to achieve a stable and progressive nation. Consequently, the basic education curriculum framework has identified values as one of the 3 pillars to be achieved in the curriculum vision, which is to be an engaged, empowered, and ethical citizen. My ministry has introduced value-based education to guide learners to see beyond their self-interests to the needs of the global community, value diversity of culture, religion, language, environment, and history, and demonstrate respect, empathy, and compassion for all people. We recognize that acquisition and nurturing of values takes place through the formal, non-formal, and informal dimensions of learning. In the formal dimension, values have been incorporated in the various learning areas and subjects that are being taught alongside the subject matter. We appreciate the whole school approach, which is the best strategy for the successful implementation of value-based education. To this end, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development has developed guidelines on value-based education for use in all educational institutions in Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to reiterate that the government remains committed to support value-based education so as to nurture the core values of love, responsibility, respect, unity, peace, patriotism, social justice, and integrity that will allow learners to be empowered, engaged, and ethical citizens for holistic transformation of self and society. Thank you.
Estimada doctora Sara Ruto, muchas gracias por sus inspiradoras palabras.
Listening to children is important because not always adults understand things from our perspective. Most of the time, we like to be engaged in activities rather than being entertained. Looking at things from our point of view is important because at many times it is different from what elders see. So, listening and active listening is what we children expect from adults.
Escuchar a los niños y niñas es importante porque todas las opiniones, si son desde el respeto, deben y merecen ser escuchadas.
Sobre todo porque somos nosotros los involucrados en nuestra educación.
En palabras de la escritora estadounidense Sarah Denson, la música es el gran unificador, algo que personas que difieren sobre cualquier otra cosa pueden tener en común.
Vamos a deleitarnos con un breve interludio musical presentado por Tamara y Matías, desde México.
Queridos Tamara y Matías, muchas gracias por esta hermosa presentación.
Now it's a privilege to introduce Professor Azza Karam, Secretary General, Religions for Peace.
Greetings, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Azza Karam, and I have the privilege to serve as the Secretary General of Religions for Peace. For those who may not know, Religions for Peace is a little bit like the United Nations of different religious institutions. Just like the UN has member states or governments, Religions for Peace is member religious institutions and faith communities from around the world. We're very committed as Religions for Peace when all our faith leaders came together in December of 2019 to plan for the next 5-year strategic plan and the directions of this organization. They maintained that interreligious education would be and is a continuing key priority for the work of this organization. Why would religious leaders from around the world commit to this? Because, as Arigato and many of those who are hosting today's wonderful seminar have already attested, ethics education is not a luxury. Ethics education is a must. And for children, it becomes as necessary as learning how to count, how to spell, how to read, and how to be respectful of one another's traditions and cultures, and how to behave and live in a world of social coexistence that demands that we respect where we come from, who we are, and how we believe and behave. Ethics education is not a matter of choice. It should be something that everyone is taught at a very young age as a matter of principle in order to realize in practice. What we have learned from the experience of working with partners as distinguished as Arigato and many of those who have been supporting this work for many, many years is that, quite frankly, we don't have an option to continue business as usual. Our educational systems demand an intercultural and interreligious, and they're sometimes one and the same, awareness, but not only an awareness, a skills building. As very young people, we need to learn already how to interact and engage with one another. Because guess what? Even as very young children, violence can be too often present. In order to overcome any tendency towards violence towards one another, we must build a loving society. Building a loving society demands that we understand and appreciate and respect one another's faith traditions ingrained in one another's cultures. Our diversity and the diversity of our cultures is precisely what interreligious and intercultural education should teach, can teach, and are teaching when it is possible and when they are available. We therefore strongly commend the work of Arigato and many, many others in this space, because they bring together that interreligious, intercultural awareness and sensitivity that we must ingrain from the very youngest moment, that we are open and alert and develop a consciousness about the world till we become who we are today. God bless you.
Thank you, dear Professor Karam, for an insightful intervention.
Estamos felices de presentar a nuestro distinguido invitado, señor José María El Corral, presidente de las Escuelas Ocurrentes.
Soy José María del Corral, fundador de Escuelas Ocurrentes, junto con Enrique Palmeiro y el entonces Jorge Bergoglio, hoy Papa Francisco. Comenzamos hace 30 años, creyendo que Argentina, nuestro país, solo podía salir de la crisis si recuperábamos esos valores que nos hacían religarnos, volvernos a encontrar. Y eso era una tarea educativa, era un desafío cultural. Por eso desarrollamos una metodología de participación ciudadana, llamada primero Escuela de Vecinos y luego Escuelas Ciudadanía, para que chicos de distintas religiones, chavales, jóvenes, adolescentes, se pudieran encontrar durante una semana o un mes y vivir una experiencia educativa, donde no solamente estuviera el pensar, sino también el sentir y el hacer, los 3 lenguajes, la cabeza, el corazón y las manos. Eso generaba una armonía entre ellos y también hacia afuera. Esa metodología se fue desarrollando y luego nuestro jefe y nuestro cofundador fue el Papa Francisco. Y él vio que era necesario, no solo en Argentina, sino en el mundo, poder escalar esta experiencia. Por eso Llegamos así a una etapa donde escuelas hoy presentes en 190 países y reuniendo medio millón de instituciones hace posible que muchos jóvenes como ustedes sigan haciendo realidad esta cultura del encuentro. Creemos que recuperar los valores es descubrir el sentido. Si hay sentido, hay valores, y si hay valores, habrá fundamento para que haya derechos y obligaciones. Si no, de lo contrario, seguiremos con una educación solamente de la cabeza y que en el fondo genera divisiones y violencia. Una educación que tiene sentido es una educación para la paz.
Muchas gracias, señor del Corral, por sus valiosas palabras.
Ahora, es nuestro privilegio presentar al señor Miguel Ángel Moratinos, alto representante de la Alianza de las Civilizaciones de las Naciones Unidas.
Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. In my capacity as the High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization, the leading United Nations entity for intercultural interreligious dialogue, understanding and cooperation, it is my distinct pleasure to address the symposium focusing on two topics of particular importance to UNOSC: education, which is one of the main pillars of our work under the prism of conflict prevention, and living together, one of the principles of the Decalogue that I introduced upon taking up my responsibility as High Representative in January 2019. UNOSC experience and expertise in fostering cross-cultural dialogue to overcoming cultural stereotypes and intolerance through education can prove helpful to come up with concrete programmatic action and to devise ways to work more closely together, the main objective of this gathering. In UNOSC, we have experience developing media literacy initiatives to provide young people and citizens with tools to become critical media users. In our Young Peace Builder program, we help young grassroots leaders acquire intercultural competencies and build critical thinking. Through our Youth Waving Peace program, we're training South Asian youth leaders to create and implement community-wide initiatives to prevent violent extremism. And in the Empowering Dialogue and Interfaith Network project, we have been working with young religious leaders, representatives of faith organizations, young media makers, to create a peer-to-peer learning space and build their capacity to counter terrorist narrative. In many of these programs, we have joined forces with the other UN entities and partners. We are ready to share our experience and lessons learned with all of you and devise ways for collaboration to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunity for all. Thank you very much.
Estimado señor Moratinos, muchas gracias por sus importantes comentarios.
Nos complace en la palabra a nuestra última y muy distinguida invitada de hoy, señora Paloma Escudero, directora global de comunicaciones de UNICEF.
On behalf of UNICEF, I am glad to extend a warm welcome to all participants of this Ethics Education Symposium. COVID-19 is having a devastating impact on children's learning, health, and well-being. A devastating impact that will be felt for years by every child, by every community, and by every family around the world. In a school, children learn skills that they will need for life, but also they foster relationships and a sense of belonging to their communities. Schooling plays a critical role in fostering common values, building life skills beyond literacy, and enabling children to contribute to their communities. Faith communities have a unique role to play in advocating to reopen schools, but also in advocating to reimagine what education means in COVID times, providing the opportunity of a high-quality learning experience for the 21st century for every single child. We look forward to continuing our work with Arigato as a trusted partner in the areas of education, of mental health, and also in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Warm greetings from the UNICEF family, and I wish you all a fruitful symposium ahead.
Estimada señora Escudero, gracias por sus valiosas palabras y por su compromiso con la educación de niños y niñas por todo el mundo. Nuestra ceremonia de apertura ha llegado a su fin.
Ahora es hora de que todos y todas nos involucremos en estos 2 días de diálogos enriquecedores para avanzar en la educación ética.
We invite you to listen, share, reflect, and participate actively in this event. Welcome to our online global symposium. Let's transform education together.